Welcome to a new episode of the Advancing Consciousness series with Franco Di Nicola. This is a place where people can come to gain further insight and clarity as to what is going on and how we can shift things on a personal and global level, while also accessing higher levels of consciousness and awareness. We bring this series to you free of charge so that many are able to access this information. However, if you resonate with what Franco shares and you would like to support his work, contributions are welcomed and greatly appreciated. A link is in the description and will be provided in the chat if you feel guided to do so. Also, we have many previous workshops, such as a couple of our most recent, Maneuvering with Neutrality and Alignment during this next wave of unfoldments, and Deprogram Clearing Empowerment Workshop. You could also join us in our membership program, Let's Talk About You, where like-minded people come together bi-weekly to talk about the topics requiring deeper understanding and clarity. All of these are available on Teachable, and we encourage you to check them out as they are great resources at very affordable prices to assist in better understanding this human experience. The Teachable link will also be provided in the chat and description. And lastly, don't forget to share. As the more of us coming together and creating a shift in oneself, the more effective it'll be to shift things globally. Thank you for joining us and being part of the change. Enjoy today's broadcast.
So welcome everybody to another episode of Advancing Consciousness series. Today is episode 74 and we're going to be playing with fear or slave, and then we're going to continue with the questions that we have more queued in, but we also have some that we have for a couple of weeks now that we've been kind of collecting. So we've come again to play and to experience ourselves in a grander way, and this is our perfect opportunity to do so. So just to remind you, if you're new, please share, subscribe, if you're on certain platforms, and at the same time notification bell if you're on YouTube and so forth. And at the same time, any comments and so forth are kind of appreciated so that it keeps people in the loop. The more content there is on there and so forth, you don't have to say much. But anyways, we get to play with all of that. So at this time, before we get started, some technical housekeeping there going on. Fantastic. All right. So today we're going to look at what fear and slave. I mean, that's an interesting concept and understanding. A lot of people get caught up in the idea that we're not free, that we are in this kind of a slave playground. We actually have no choice. And the fact that in one way or another, if we have a choice, it's limited the choices that we have. And a lot of people experience that in their own lives. And I can't say that anyone is kind of free of that. Maybe more of us are getting to that point where we are freeing ourselves. But then we look at it, do we feel like a slave? Well, right now, guess what's happening? With all of the stuff that's going on right now, many people, even when they never even recognize it, are feeling a little bit more of that kind of a slave experience. But we're going to entertain with that. And the reason we brought up this today is because it came up very strong a few days ago that it was a topic that we needed to play with before we carried on with the Q&A. So anyways, free or slave is what we're going to play with first. Where are we? You'd think I'd have all this mastered by now, but not quite. Okay. All right. So let's play. Free or slave. So the question is, do you feel free or do you feel like a slave? You've probably heard people say that we're on a slave planet. And others have said, no, we have free will, we have this, we have that, and we can play with this. But the question is, how do you feel about it? Do you feel like a slave, or do you feel that you actually have freedom? I know from a large perspective, when we're looking at the bigger picture, we're not going to see slavery. We're going to see freedom. And we go beyond the whole idea that we're free to choose to come and play on this playground, that we are free to come and go as we please. We are free to kind of shape our reality in any which way and so forth. But many of us have been living life where they can't see that freedom. And most of us, for a good portion of our life, if not all, and now just starting to realize this, have felt that way. And have felt that in some way we don't have any of those freedoms that we believed. So when somebody says that we're on a slave planet, if you look at it and say, okay, you're coming to a planet that has a very rigid system, a system that in some way or another you kind of go in and buy into the game of what we can call slavery, where you're not free. You have to do something to be able to experience life. Not only that, you're not even free to be yourself. You have to be programmed and conditioned to be somebody specific. And not only something specific, it has to match what the collective in those areas are, and then the overall collective of what it is on the planet. All of us have entered on the planet here free, wanting to be here, to play on this playground as the free spirit that you are, to use your imagination, your creativity, to make your choices, to express yourself very fully to your true essence, to feel life as vivid, in motion, fluid, shaping around you. But over a period of time, as we've come here, with the input from not only family and parents, family, and educational systems and media and all other parameters that were set in the game of life, we started to shift away from that freedom experience and feeling that in some way, for you to even have any semblance of freedom, you have to comply. You need to mold yourself to what the shape or the screen would reflect, or what we were being conditioned to accept. So what ended up happening? We ended up having this expanded version of us become a smaller version of ourselves. And not only smaller, this is the best part, not only smaller, we lost a lot of our capacities to actually see who we are. And this is the thing. So it's not only shrinking it down, but almost making it taboo or wrong to be yourself. How many times that you were being yourself through your stream of life, and you were told, no, you got to grow up, you got to be this way, you got to be that way, you got to accept whatever was being presented to you as a way of life. So in fact, what ended up happening is we started to, and I talked about it in the last episode, we started to adopt a version of ourselves that was not the original version yet you entered the planet with. We created a facade, and multiple facades, as I covered it in the last episode, where no matter where you were playing, you created a version of yourself. And within those versions, you created stages of versions of yourself. Higher to lower to lower to lower. And when I say lower, meaning more and more, they merged in whatever you were playing with and having less representation of what you truly are. And I'm not even talking about the spirit source essence. I'm talking about the makeup of who you are in a physical form, a human entity, and a soul. Because each one is a powerful expression that unites and creates an alignment and an expression. So you didn't come here to take on a body and to be limited by it, or to take on a human entity to be limited on, or use your multi-dimensional aspects of yourself. Each one was very opened up to a degree where it could be used in a much grander way. So the combination of what makes you is the most advanced version of the human experience, the human entity, and also the multidimensional soul that has agreed to play a certain way, but all of them are creating a beautiful, unique expression. And that expression started right from day one, from birth. In fact, in the womb, it already started to construct, even though we may have not taken on a permanent. See, because when the body's in the womb, it's actually taking on certain characteristics and codes and so forth, and including genetics and so forth from the pool that was available from mom, and then whatever contribution dad had provided. So it started to take some of those things, but it took on quite a few, but did not turn any of them on specifically right away until human entities kept visiting and seeing which one felt, okay, this is a great stream to go into. So the human entity now started to play a bit of a role to kind of select certain parts of the genetics that were available to create something. But then the multidimensional souls kept coming in, and finally one soul saying, okay, this is going to be I'm going to choose this particular journey, and also contributing to the choice points of the genetics and the makeup and whatever else to create the stage. But each one, when arranging all of that, came in here to play a very powerful role, and not a role that in one way or another was limited. It came to express itself. So the combination of the consciousness of the body, the consciousness of the human entity, and the consciousness of the multidimensional soul came to be a very unique expression of itself, and a key component of what represents your role on this playground. And that's what it did. Now, of course, from birth, now some of it started to kind of shape within the womb, but at birth, you already came here, even though the body simulated a limitation, because that was kind of the programming that was being done so that you can actually learn about the body and so forth. But even coming in, it did not have very much, if any, of the restrictions that we are experiencing now in physical form and living this life. So right away, we started to already absorb what was being shared around you and what people were representing. Because as a child, you're looking, you're trying to learn how to navigate as a human, how to navigate in a body. Not only the motions, but what is kind of, how does this game work? So you're observing how people act, how people are communicating, how the scenery around you is in such a way. Then of course you have mom and dad that are not only having their experience, if they're both involved or not at this point in time, or whoever's involved, not only are they putting in input, you're also observing how they're moving and managing themselves, so that you have an idea, a framework of some sort to how to play the game. But then, of course, with that, we're also now being bombarded by or exposed to other people, the media, meaning, what we see on television, what is being exposed in different source points of that nature. And that's even before we go into schools. And then, of course, now the school is conditioning us and so forth, and we continue to get more and more input from the media, from other people, from us, and so forth. So what happens is that open platform that you started off with, you started to adjust because you started to see that it wasn't proper for you to be yourself in that unique part, because we also took on this whole idea, of course the ego kicks in, is that we need to be accepted, that in some way or another you can't be a full expression of yourself, that you need to now, if you want to be part of the game, you need to learn how to play the game, but you also have to comply with the game, and you can't be different from the game. Now, that may have started in the beginning, but as you went along, it did not remain fluid and strong at that point in time. It started to diminish itself until it came to the point where it saw itself in one way or another that now I've created an alignment. But what happens to that? Well, let's continue. All right. So let's play with some of the points here. So most of us, I better bring my fancy little screen. Okay, so most of us, and pretty well all of us, to one degree or another, has played it this way. You can turn around and say, no, I came open with my eyes open. Okay, I did. But at the same time, I also realized after a period of time as we're going along that somehow that being myself a certain way didn't quite make other people too comfortable. Let's put it that way. So most of us have lived and are still living life that we may have not recognized as one of slavery. Now, what does that mean, slavery? In fact, if you're looking at the word slavery, meaning that you are not playing a role, that you are fully in control, that you're not playing a role that you have multiple choices, or that the fact that you can shape it any which way you want. Now, is this slavery imposed? Absolutely. From a certain viewpoint, it looks that way. And I'm going to say the word looks, because is it or isn't it not? It may look that way. Now, we've always have a choice all the time. And we can change any part of it because the capacities that we have are amazing. It doesn't look like on the surface. And we may have agreed to go down that path. So what happens? You came here to express, you came here to play, and so forth, and then you realize if I want to play in a certain way, that in one way or another I cannot play it on my own terms. I now need to adopt the rules and how the game is played. Of course, that's an agreement right from the beginning. So it can feel that I am not free, and now I have to comply. I need to follow the rules, and that can be very powerful. But I'm going to expand that even further so that we can actually get a fuller context of that. So it goes back to the reflection, are we playing on a slave planet? Yes. But are we free? Yes. But it's up to us. So we have come onto a planet that emphasizes slavery, limitations, following certain rules, guidelines, and so forth. So yes, it may look like slavery. I have no control. You're going to have to pull me along and tell me how to play the game because I can't play it myself. I don't have that freedom. But many of us do not recognize that in a way or another, and we're going to expand that, that we're playing the slavery game. Others have recognized it, but the majority of people don't. They see it, this is the way of life. We don't have a choice and that's it. We come here and that's it. We didn't even have a choice to come here. That's afterwards through the conditioning when we turn off our access point. Now, of course, we're going through the reversal, but not all of us at this point in time, a majority are not yet realizing that. But with everything that's playing out right now, it is emphasizing it to recognize what's going on. Okay? So that's more of it. So many of us don't recognize what we're playing. what is true freedom, and how many levels of slavery are we involved in? This is a question we ask ourselves. What is true freedom? Is true freedom being ourselves 100%? True freedom is that you recognize and take advantage of shaping your life, shaping your reality. Is true freedom, even if the screen projects a way of life, that you can choose how you navigate or even give it life? Meaning, do I give it power? Does it control me or not? We have a tremendous amount of freedom we don't even recognize. And that's okay, because we came to play here to start off with it, to lose it for a period of time, and now to bring it back. And not only bring it back, even expand it, because now it's even more highly appreciated. And of course, we've advanced so much more, we can use it much more freely and more powerfully, even though we say, okay, I lost my youth, I lost my desire when I was a little kid, my imagination. Well, that was a temporary bandwidth or a temporary period of time, but it doesn't have to be now, because in essence, that imagination expands even further because you've had the resistance and the reduction, but also the fact that we are now accessing higher consciousness. Not only, because even if we're going into organic 3D or 5D or so forth, that is way more advanced than it was before. Even from the start, the get-go. Even from, when we were born, which is not that long, it may be a few decades, it may be not even that. It doesn't matter. But at the same time, a lot of that is advanced. Everything is advanced. So those levels of consciousness are way beyond where it used to be. That's for sure. But at the same time, we are much more experientially rich. Every part of us has been upgrading along the way. And now it's just plugging in the game. So what is true freedom? Well, you basically are shaping your life every step of the way. Do you have that available right now? That's a good question to ask. Do we have that available? Kimberly, do we have that available? True freedom?
Yes, we do.
We do. Fantastic. That's what she says. I'm not going to believe her today. No, I will. I'm just kidding. Okay. So how many levels of slavery are we involved? That's a good question. And we're going to take a look at it. We're going to take a look at it as we expand it and take a look at all the levels, because most of us don't realize how much. But why am I bringing this up? So that you can acknowledge it, you can see it, and then you can choose freely how you start to unplug or reshape any part of it. Because the thing is, as much as, it doesn't matter how deep we've gone, how much we've taken on, how much experience we have in any of it, it is still completely dissolvable, completely reshaped in any way, shape, or form. Many of us are being stimulated so powerfully and are feeling it with all these new codes and energetic bursts and so forth, and we've had some pretty powerful ones just recently, and we're still in the midst of some of it that's still playing out. That renewal of that freedom, the renewal of the source essence spirit that you are, that renewal of excitement of redesigning it is coming and becoming more online for you. Okay. All right. So, the question, basically the statement we could say, we are either playing and seeing life, so either we're playing and seeing life, the worldscape, the systems, other people, and circumstances as part of a game, or being a slave to it. Depends how you look at it. I talk about play, I talk about the game of life. If you see it as a game, and that you are playing in the game, and you have freedom in the game, then it does not control you. You can take temporary, how can I say, temporary position to feel enslaved in it, but you don't see it that you're limited by it. Because when we look at the world the way it is right now, it looks like we're deep into slavery because we believe, we took on the idea temporarily that we have no choice, we have no control, there's authority figures, there's systems, there's this, there's that, whatever it is. Okay? So yes, you can turn around and say, well, what choice do I have? So it's either you're playing and seeing life and all of that stuff as a game, or you see it controlling you, enslaving you. Now, look at it this way. Pay attention to yourself. When you see that everything is dictating your life, it could be people, it could be circumstances, it could be what is in your community, what families or partners or whoever you're playing with. Whatever is being thrown out at you from the systems, and there is the monetary system, the governmental system, the medical system, the educational system, the media systems, and so forth, religion systems, and so forth. You could say, well, I'm enslaved by all of that. Those things tell me how to live my life. Any of that acceptance is perfect if you choose to play with it, but that enslaves you. That is part of the slavery. But now, pay attention for a sec. If you now look at it, oh, this is just a game. Not only is it a game, I can see the game and myself to choose to play in the game, and I can change any part of the game. Because when you see it as a game, the solid barriers that we may have created in our reality, meaning that I am in this box, because the moment you see that anything, systems, people, whatever it is in control, you get into this thing here. You get into a box. You're in there once you see it that way. And that's great. It's a great experience and so forth. But the moment you say, well, I have no choice, this is your box, your prison, whatever you want to call it. And it's a great experience, like I said, but you can choose if you want to do that. But if you see it as a game, you can be in the box and say, hey, this is a game. It's not, I can change any part of it, and I'm going to have fun. What's the difference? Do I feel that the world is restricting me, or I'm going to just choose from this moment to have fun with the world? Have fun with the game of life, meaning have fun with yourself, being your body and everything else, the body and all parts of you, fun with other playmates that you may have, could be a partner, could be your children, could be different environments, work, whatever it is, whatever you have playmates. You can look at the game of life in the sense of all the constructs and everything else and say, well, it's a game. How do I choose to now shape the game? Now, you're not going to go and say, well, I got to change all of this before it becomes fun. No, I'm going to have fun with the way it is, and then I'm going to start tweaking it, meaning that I'm not going to take it seriously. I'm going to see it as an opportunity for myself to go in, experience certain parts, and change it. And the only reason you're changing is not because you have judgment, because that's not going to work, or that you see it as good, bad, right, or wrong. You're going to see the game adjustments to say, okay, now it's time for me to feel more in alignment. So I'm going to change it or shift it so it matches me, what I am expressing, what I am a reflection of. So I'm going to reshape it. So any reason you would change any part of the game is you want it to match the new you that you're becoming, because there's a new version of you unfolding over and over again, meaning that new layers of you, a grander, expanded version of you is coming forth every minute. Because you are always constantly upgrading. So, the choice is yours. Am I going to look at playing and seeing life as part of the game? or to be enslaved by it. It's your choice, absolutely your choice. But one feels not only freer, it feels a lot more fun, and that part doesn't feel that you are in a box. That does not exist when you decide, I'm playing the game. I'm playing the game. I have the freedom to play the game. I can shape any part of it. Then you're not going to judge the box. You're going to look at it and say, okay, how does it serve? How much fun can I have within this? And the moment you notice that it's no longer without judgment, of course, I remind you that, then you could say, time to dissolve all of this. It no longer needs to be. And guess what? You're outside of the box, but now you have a broader opportunity to play. So let's take a look some more. All right. So, how many of us are a slave to our programs? First one. And what do I mean by that? That the programs control us, actually dictate what you do, don't do, how you do it, how you feel, and everything else. And what are programs? Programs are conditioned patterns, stories attached to it, or whatever it is that we have taken on, that now those programs really shape not only how we feel about self, what we do, whatever it is, it actually controls us. Great experience, opportunity galore, but at the same time, now it's time to look at it and say, well, okay, I want to do this, but your program comes in and your program says, oh, you're not good enough to do this, you're not capable. That's the belief part within the program. So it's an automatic default of sorts that comes up, that perfect program. Hey, you know, I have a lot of history here where I've failed, which is illusionary anyways, because we can't fail. But at the same time, we've adopted that, and we have a program. We have a program of a particular story, pattern, and so forth, or whatever we've taken on. Now, every time you want to take a step forward, it kind of plays out for you in such a way where it actually controls you. But what happens is, not recognizing it and allowing it to control you, direct you, and dictate what choices you make, then you're kind of going into the slavery component of it. So now the program controls you instead of you controlling and eliminating the program. Programs serve. It's all part of the adoption process. It's all about taking it on, enjoying, playing with it, and so forth. But at some point, it doesn't make sense anymore. At some point, it's time to move beyond it. So it's not just the game of what we're looking at around us, being other people, the systems, and so forth. It's also our programs. Our programs actually plays a big role in this. And we can add the rest of it, slavery. Patterns, too. What are patterns? Automatic defaults. Like we have a pattern to always do it this way or that way, which limits our potentiality and choices. Great experience, but do you still want it to control you? Because if the pattern still controls you, our automatic patterns that we adopted, like we were talking earlier, that we've adopted along the way through our experience of life, then it controls you. And once it controls you, now you're playing the slave role. The pattern controls you. We're all familiar with the ego, artificial intelligence. How many of us are a slave to our ego? It tells us how to live our life, tells us all these beautiful stories of life. Great experience, a blast. But at some point in time, and most of us are feeling it now, do I still want to be the slave of the ego? Do I want the ego to tell me how to live my life and to experience? Because it's a great story maker and it's going to tell you. And guess what? What we call the ego is very well tuned for the inverted 3D and 2D, inverted matrix, inverted world. The matrix is the inverted world. So how many of us are a slave to that? Something to pay attention to. So, how do you pay attention? When you got those stories going on in your head that's still emphasizing polarity, good, bad, right, wrong, you could do this, you can't do that, or whatever it is, that's mainly this. And it loves to use programs. It loves to use also what we call stories, because it's a great, powerful story maker. It makes a lot of stories. Stories about what is, what isn't, what should be, what shouldn't be, and so forth. And a lot of the stories are directed main to you, or the stories are directed towards other as a projection of sort. It's going to use all of that. So the ego becomes very big controller of our life. So it's a matter of noticing it. Like I said, you notice it coming on and say, okay, do I choose to be subject by the ego's stories and programs, patterns, and so forth, or do I choose to be free? And if you say free, you can say to your ego when it's making the story, I am choosing freedom. So thank you for reminding me that I have that option of this so-called prison and multiple prisons. I have the option, but I'm not choosing. I'm outside of that. So if you say, I choose freedom, because even fear plays into it. How freeing is fear? Yeah, the first two letters may match the free part. Well, not quite.
One letter.
One letter does. You can say the free part, all right? But fear is another slave control. That's why so much of it has been projected. You need to be afraid of this, afraid of that, whatever it is. Afraid of yourself. Afraid of having freedom. And afraid to be fearful. That's all of it, right? So how much freedom do you have when you're free, in fear? How free are you with fear? How many choices can you make while you're in fear? It reduces it tremendously. You could have a list of things that you want to do. As long as fear is plugged in, you may be wiping out a lot of them. You want to go do something fun? Oh, ego's going to say, you got to be afraid. How about if you run into an accident, or you have a situation, or this or that, or take out a lot of your past? So ego and fear, with all the stories, play a good role. Prison of money. Listen, guys. Money was never introduced as a tool for freedom. It was introduced as a tool to imprison. Because under the geyser, the idea of money is required. How much of our time, how much is our focus, how much is of all of our energy resources have been wrapped up in not only survival, but to have money to be somebody. And in fact, if you do not strive for it, not only you're nobody, or whatever it likes to present, and I'm talking about the operating system, but survival, if you can't survive. You take a kid that comes onto the planet. We have all come onto the planet at different points in time. We've all come onto the planet. And guess what? Most of all that conditioning that I was talking about earlier was so that you can get certain skill sets that fit into this box or slavery program so that you can have money so you can survive. But not only that. you can go right and have money, but still be a slave to it because you always have to have more. Because the ego, all the operating system, the more you have, the better you are. Not only better you are, and it's not no longer survival to the same degree as somebody else. It would be a different version of survival. But the survival of, fitting on some ladder of some sort. But at the same time, it can obsess you to put a lot of energy and attention to making more and more and more and more and having more and more and more, and that you now are caught up and you're a slave to making money, but you're also a slave to your patterns and programs that were established around that. How many people have lots of money and still can't stop and are afraid to spend, or if they do spend, they got to make sure they have some money? So how much of that is freedom? It's still an experience, it's still great, but is it free? How many of us are putting so much time every single day to make sure we have what we call money so that we can not only survive, but be able to do some things? The whole idea of earning. That is another slave control. It was never put in that way. It was put in when the inverted world came in. Our habits, of course, we all establish habits. How free are we when we are giving power to the habits, when the habits actually control us? Something to look at. Addictions, ooh, huge. How much freedom do you experience when your addictions take over? When your addictions are telling you what to do, what not to do, what conditions, or whatever it is. So our addictions may be consuming certain things. And as long as it's consuming that, not only do you have to keep replacing it, but it changes your state. It actually either lowers your frequency, it actually throws you off, or it consumes a lot of time and so forth, and doesn't allow you to feel free. It's a good question to ask yourself. Why is the addiction there in the first place? A lot of times it's to escape what? The prison. How many of us have addiction to escape the prison? Some people say, well, it's for my emotions or for, to escape. What are you escaping? You're escaping an illusionary jail, an illusionary slavery. I can't be myself, but when I take this, I don't feel so bad about myself. And when I take this or consume this or expose, that I can override or gratify myself so that I can feel, oh, okay, at least I get a little glimpse of how it feels to be gratified. I've done something for myself or something of that nature. That is all part and parcel within the confines of what we call slavery. Oh, this one's a good one. Kimberly does not know about that one.
Which one?
It's a secret one.
Ego?
Past.
Ooh.
A slave to our past. How does that fit in? What do you mean? What are you talking about? How many of us are living our life based on our past? What we did, what we didn't do, what was good, what was bad, what happened, who was involved, the opportunities that you thought you missed, the opportunities that you kind of chose and didn't play out a certain way and so forth, and that we're dragging all of that. The past is a powerful jail. Okay? This is you. It's got some pretty good bars on it. Thick ones. Not easy to get out of if you're living in the past. How many of us have referred to what may have happened in our life, even trauma of a particular time? How many of us are milking to death what happened or didn't happen in us? Or that we are still following that narrative, that idea that this happened to my country, to my people, to this or that, or that I lived in a world that reflected or a part of the world that reflected something else. Or what I did in school, what I did as growing up, or who was there, who wasn't there, who played whatever role. Do you think that that, in one way or another, does not somehow enslave us? Absolutely. It's a big one. It's a big ball that you're dragging with a chain. This is why we talk a lot about it. I've talked about it and other people talk about it, is dropping the past and the labels and definitions that are attached to it. Because what does it do? It enslaves us. It controls us. Even our options and choices, because the ego loves it. The ego loves our past because the ego can put any label it wants on it and then define it. And then it defines you. So basically, it defines what happened, then it defines you, and then your choice points become extremely limited. If you feel that no, you can't play free, and it's gonna, because of an experience you had as a child, guess what? That's going to continue being projected. Because the past loves, through the ego, to project the future. And guess what? It's infused in the present. It's not that it's, okay, the past pays only the future, but it's also in the present. Why is it in the present? Because it depends on where our focus is. If we're still thinking in the past. So the past is a huge slave control. Let's make fear of losing someone or something in our lives. If we are afraid to be ourselves, we are afraid to make certain choices because, I'm going to lose my family, I'm going to lose my partner, or I'm going to lose my business, or I'm going to lose my home, I'm going to lose my stuff, I'm going to lose myself. That's a good one. I love that one. Lose self. First of all, if it's true self, you can't lose it. So if it's true, you can't lose it. You can only expand it, and it expands automatically. But what are we afraid of? Losing someone or something. Guess what? Just that fear of losing something restricts us completely. Look at it in our lives. How many times do we shape our life around other people, other situations and so forth, because we're afraid to lose it? Afraid to lose the family, for example, the partner, or whatever it is. So instead of being ourselves, we adopt a version of ourselves that fits in there so that we don't lose somebody. That is this again. You're still in a prison. Doesn't matter. We have many, many layers to this prison. The point is, if you want to be free, truly free, you be yourself wherever you are. And if things need to shift, they'll shift. Meaning people come and go, whatever it is, you lose something, it doesn't matter. Because other things will align, which matches who you are, that free being, rather than that restricted being. Look at our world. If you feel like a slave, if you feel limited, then everything in your life is going to reflect that very powerfully. That means everything that's playing out, everything that you're, not only because what you can see or not see, that's one part of it, but everything is going to keep coming as a feedback of that. And with the stuff that's accentuating now, some of the role players will actually ramp up the role that they're going to play to make you feel even more restricted. For what reason? To recognize it so we can move on. So being free is having no qualms or fears about what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, what's going to play out, or what's not going to play out. You're just being yourself. Then you're free. So if people come and go, that's cool. Whatever it is. How many of us have lived our life in such a fashion that eventually you come to the point and you decide no more of playing this role, and you make new choices. Certain people leave, certain people shift their roles, or situations and so forth. And once you've done it, it feels so much better. It feels more aligned with who you are. And then the connections are completely grander. And this whole idea and that, you get to a certain point, it's too late, that's an illusion. That's part of the prison. Ego loves that one. Oh, it's too late. You missed out your opportunity. No more. It doesn't work that way. So how about a slave to our identity? Another good one. our identity. How many of us have looked at our lives and said, this is who I am. This is what people know me as. This is what I've always done. But we don't have one identity. We have many. But we have the overlaying one. This is who I am. And I crafted this identity. I learned a lot of things. I went to school. I observed with other people, and I've created identity. This is who I am. And I'm walking around as who I am. Is it truly who? Or it's just the identity? And then your identity has layers to it. So if you go to the family, it's going to be one layer. You go to work, it's another layer. You go with friends, it's another layer. You're at home and playing with your partner is another layer. So you have many facades. And I've talked about it in the last episode. But at the same time, we get lost in the identity. This is who I am. That's a cool experience. But are you who you are now? Or was at one point or another? Or what you've labeled? So as long as you're the identity, and when I say identity, that facade of you, then how much freedom do you actually have? How many more expanded options do you have? How far can you go if you're still giving a lot of power to that? Listen, how many people have gotten to the point now, and many more are going, I don't know who I am anymore. What are they losing? Their identity. Their adopted, crafted identity. Because when that's dropped, you get to find who you are. And who you are has no real definition. You're this powerful being that has a beautiful connection with yourself in form, human entity, and soul as a powerful expression and a powerful component of redesigning the human experience and planetary part. And it doesn't even get to the point where it actually puts a lot of power into even that. You can say, well, I'm God, I'm source, I'm this, I'm that, whatever it is. It doesn't even go there. I'm just completely open because you want to keep it open. If the more open you are, the more flexible, more you can adjust and shape to be the most powerful expression that you are. So, a slave to our identity, our culture. How many of us get caught up in our culture, where your upbringing is, what the family idea of how it is? I am this or that. Great experience, but at some point, is that limiting you? Is that in one way still enslaving you? I am such and such. The culture. Yeah, you could say, well, you know, I came through that upbringing, great, I had that experience, but you choose not to be driven by the culture because the culture has a lot of different ideas how to live, and this is who we are, and we're this or we're that. And again, that restricts you from your free state. You can go play anywhere, but you're not going to get lost in it and how it defines you. Traditions, that's the other one. Just going to make some room here. Traditions, getting caught up in tradition. This is how it's always been done. My family's done it this way. I got to follow their footsteps. The tradition is I got to follow the footsteps. Tradition is this is how it's always been done. So this is how we eat. This is how we, we see things, and this is how we communicate with others. That's another level of restriction, or what we can call slave self. Gender, getting caught up on the gender. You know what I mean by about gender? It's not about male or female. It's about the story attached to the male or female. A male's this way, a female's this way. Yes, we have different genetics when it comes to the way the bodies function and how we, have certain characteristics and so forth. But we're not going to label ourselves one gender or another and create all this gender thing of equality and imbalances and so forth. But we're not going to define it because this gender thing is hugely projected now. And And also race is the other one that I didn't even put in there. Gender and race. But the whole idea, look at the gender. Yes, you're in a different physicality. You have certain things that are emphasized over the other. That's it. We all play different roles. But what genderifies everything is all the stories, programs, belief systems, and so forth of what a female and a male is all about. What they do, what they don't do, who could do it, who can't do it. It's not open and saying, okay, well, this feels most natural, or whatever it is. But not only that, look at the gender. It depends on where on the planet you're born, in what culture, what race, all of those have different definition what a male and a female is. Who sits on whatever status, who has more power than the other. You look at it, those are confines. They project a slave version of self. That's what they do. So you want to look at it and say, well, yeah, I may be in a female body or a male body, but I'm not going to take all of these projected ideas of it's this way or that way. I got to dress this way, I got to act this way, I can do this and I can't do that, or anything of that nature. You go with your own inner guidance of how it feels natural to you to play, but it has no parameters. See, this whole idea that, male energy, female energy, we have it both. We're just a complete unit of both. We just use certain parts of it accordingly to emphasize the particular physical representation that you are. All those other layers that we were talking about, all of this other stuff, remember, most of it goes right back to the inverted 3D, inverted 2D, and inverted world, inverted matrix, inverted everything, really, where we see everything backwards. So yeah, you're in a different body, but it's okay. You still have the freedom. And you chose the body, by the way. You could have come in any part you want. Upbringing and family. If we give a lot of power of how we've been brought up, what it is to be this or that, then it does dictate how you experience things. How much flexibility you have, how much freedom you have, how many choices you have. If you take on the family dynamics and whatever it is, that, again, only emphasizes the slave self. That's all it does. Because the free self says, okay, hey, this is how I've been upbringing, and that was great while I used it, but I'm completely free. I choose in that family dynamics or whatever it is to be myself. Listen, all of us, we didn't come here to get lost in the game for the whole life stream. We did it in the beginning just to get a feel for it, to understand it, and so forth. You came here to be uniquely you. And don't think that your family brought you, you entered a particular family, yes, to create a certain experience, but you didn't come into the family to be them. You came into the family to bring your uniqueness. And they know you've come to the point where, even though they're at a superconscious level, that you came here to play a particular role to shake up or shift or expand their viewpoint of life. It's the gifting. You say, well, I'm going to come in, I'm going to hold a certain energy, I'm going to also express something different. What they choose to do with it is up to them, but you're still creating that opening. All right. I think this is close to the last. It is the last. So, now here is the central question, the main question. What world do you want to play in? Because both are available and displayed. We talked about the old world, new world. You know the slave self? This part, and I'll put self back up since it went. This part here is in the old world. The new world does not have a slave self. It has a free self. So, sweetheart, which one do you want to play with?
Go with free.
You want to go free? Why?
More fun.
More fun. Okay. So, if you looked around, look at the world and everything that's being reflected. Not only yourself, your immediate interconnection could be your partner, could you be your closest family being your own extended family. It could be your extended family being from the life stream that you come through. You can look at your community. You can look at, of course, your culture, gender, whatever it is, but you can also look at the different parts of the world that you're in, and you're looking at the world overall. Pretty well. I don't have to say it, but that is reflecting the old world. Very powerfully. And then you have the new world, which is also at the same time existing. This is really seasoned. This has tremendous backbone and experience around it. Why? Because we've been living it for 10,000 years. We've put our life into it. We've made it real. Okay? This was never real. It was an imposed idea that it was real. This is real. And when I say real, meaning that is our natural playground. But we have both. So if we're going to be afraid of life and everything that's being dictated, we're just giving life to this and still playing there. And that's okay. You have the freedom to do so, because what you want to do is you want to get to a saturation point till the point of this going on. Both are available. So you always have that choice all the time. So when you hear all this fear and everything else, what's going on and so forth, you have the choice. Old world, new world. Fear is good in this one. Free is in this one. This is free and open. And this is free and limited. Fear-based and limited. Yeah. Fear-based and limited. It's your choice. You always have the choice. The old world is being reflected very powerfully, while the new world is also coming in energetically within yourself. This is birthed through you. You're unpacking it within yourself and within everywhere that you are expressing and playing on. You're unpacking it. You're the one that's doing this. So the choice is yours. The big question to ask yourself, what world do you want to play in? Both are displayed and both are available all the time. If it's polarized, it's the old world. If it's free, neutral, it's the new world. But the new world is, you can still see the old world for now. But you have the choice. You hear something on the news or whatever it is, or whatever anybody's projecting out there or playing out, or whatever who's giving you rules or whatever it is, and you say, what do I choose? What do I choose? Which world do I choose? I choose that free world. So in that freedom, that does not apply to me. And you start to see that. But if you have a fear behind that, of course it's going to reflect until you get to drop the fear. So that's the way we play the game. So the choice is yours. Free or free. Freedom or slavery. That's your choice. Do we continue giving power to this? I guess I better give them the bad news. This is birthing through you. This is dissolving in you. Some of us may be holding on very tightly to this because it's running away. And the ego is saying, hey, this is coming to the end. Maybe we just have to hold on to it very tight. Don't think these energies are coming in, these codes that are coming in, all these portal alignments and all of this stuff that's going on, every burst that we have is to support this. Is to support this. It supports this, not this. However, everything that is in the existence of what we're looking at is projected through media and whatever else and other people. It's still reflecting this. But guess what? As you are shifting, as you've already noticed, that does not really have any more power, or at least a reduced capacity of that power over you, because you're choosing more freedom, you're choosing more of being yourself. All right, great. I think that's all I'm going to talk about. I'm going to get rid of that. And I'm going to get rid of all of this too. No. Oops. Let's do this. So let's go play with the Q&A. All right. Okay. So we're going to continue with the questions so that we get to address the ones that are in queue here that we've been waiting. So go ahead.
The questions I'm going to start with are the ones from last week that we didn't finish. So I know there's new questions on the chat, but they're at the bottom of the list now. Sorry, people. Eventually, maybe we'll get to them all. We hope. And then people email me questions. So it's a never-ending thing. So at some point, I think we're going to have another week of questions.
Yes.
Right?
It's not going to stop here today. Again, our intent is always to do just Q&A for the whole episode, but it ends up being that always something gets thrown in from what people need at the time. So, okay, great. All right, we got to do this one. The whole thing about freedom and being free or a slave was not my intent. Like I said, it came in 2 days before and said, okay, we got to cover that too. Okay, so we get to cover it. Anyways.
Okay, so I'll just start with questions. They're random, like they're not necessarily on the topic we're talking about. So
oh no, you're not.
They're all over the place.
Okay.
So
just timestamp them for me if you can.
But
go ahead.
I'm going to. All right. So the first one, I'm dying to know more about inner Earth. Could you speak of this today, please? Well, that was a couple weeks ago, but
if you die, you will see the inner Earth. Okay, so what do you want to know about the inner Earth? There's so much to it. Okay.
Why don't you just kind of give a little, brief kind of summary of what inner Earth is and
Okay, many of the planets have a surface dwellers, and they have internal dwellers. Okay, so what is inner Earth? The center of the planet itself has an actual another playground. It has a large crystal in the center of it that acts as the sun. It has more of a bluish hue, and the inner Earth actually creates an energetic field or playground of sort that is much tuned to fifth dimensional consciousness and even 6 and 7. But the majority of it is fifth dimensional consciousness. There are beings that live there. Some are very human based, some are that have extended and carried on from the Lemurians, which were another series of physicalities that existed prior to us and prior to the Atlanteans. The Atlanteans were a hybrid that were Lemurians that went into a hybrid version and then created a focus on technologies. So the actual Earth itself has only, I think, a 400-mile crust or something of that nature. I don't remember all the details. And then the what they consider the molten. I mean, you have to understand this is all really a holographic expression that exists. Planet Earth is not solid. It just looks that way, feels that way, and carries representation of that. Neither are we or anything else that exists in the field of source. So the inner Earth has its entry from the both of the polars entry points at this point in time, but there are also kind of so-called skylights that exist that do connect to the surface, in the sense you can have certain hues of light come through, and people have noticed and seen that certain parts that the water glows a certain color of nature, and sometimes a lot of that is expressed like what do they call the colors in not the rainbow, but the colors aura. No, not the aura. You know, the when you go up north and you can see the aurora borealis. A lot of that.
Northern Lights, honey.
Northern Lights. Okay. So-called. We also have southern lights, but we don't see it ourselves. But the northern lights, a lot of that is really coming through from the openings that are coming from the inner Earth. Now, the inner Earth itself is there's groups, and then we have, of course, other brother sister souls that come and go. Some humans actually live there, and some humans already have entered there because that's how they chose to do so. They're representing a fifth dimensional consciousness, and we are on the surface have been playing that inverted world for the longest time. Now, they are playing a role because they are at times coming to the surface, a few of them, and will take on certain roles, and they can actually represent and look like humans at this point if they're not, but a lot of the humans will come and go. And the inner Earth itself, per se, is another playground. Now, there's no daylight, nighttime, or anything like that, or moons or anything of that nature. It's just basically, so it's just, if you're looking at it, how can I say? I'm going to draw, I'm not an artist here by any means. So this is the inner sun, which is a large crystal, and there's vegetation, there's, what's that? There's mountains, there's lakes, there's all types of things. And there are people that live in there. And then we are at the top on the surface here living the external. Now our sun is, of course that's not in correlation to size-wise, but our sun actually illuminates and holds the frequency for the surface dweller, and this sun here actually is for the internal dweller. This reflects a very different, very non-fluctuating of real extreme of the climate and so forth. The openings itself has connections to it, to the surface at this point in time, and even though if you enter there you can't actually see it, but in some of these areas you'll notice that it's not just ice, okay? There is, you know, water in there. Now, of course, they made it such a fashion so that you're not seeing it. Now, I know I'm going to be pissing off some people that are into the flat earth and all of that stuff, which at one point we may cover. That is another question. Okay, so now what's happening is this particular sun has been upgrading also, and it is increasing the frequency that it is moving through to the surface. Not only is the frequency from the sun been increased, we're also receiving from the galactic energy field is also coming to the planet at this point in time, and it's also fueling and upgrading our regular sun. So this is the sun, and so forth. The reason they haven't interacted with us is because the surface dwellers are still very violent, are still playing in the polarity world in a very powerful way. Their energy, of course, it is increasing. Our energy on a collective scale is very low and does not support a true integrated fifth, sixth, and seventh dimensional consciousness. In their case, they're experiencing a fifth as a minimum, and also 6 and 7. So basically 5 to 7-dimensional consciousness is what is represented here. We do have ships and stuff that enter in and out of there all the time, and so forth. Now, that's the inner earth part that I'm referring to. The sun, as much as you think that the sun is a big ball of fire, that's how we're led to believe. So I'm just going to redo this. The sun itself is designed the same. There's an inner sun, and what we see as the external sun is actually a layer on the surface. So there are surface dwellers, there are dwellers here, there are dwellers inside. And what we actually see is this energy field on the outside that reflects as light, and we interpret that light, that frequency, as heat and so forth. I won't get into the details because there's a lot more details on how our planet actually takes and converts everything that we're experiencing, including our physical representation. So that's the inner earth part. There's a lot more information that we can cover, but we're not going to address it in the Q&A part. Okay.
Okay, next question. Just putting the time thing in.
Okay.
Turn on my mic would help. Why do we create dementia?
Why do we create dementia?
Yep.
Well, you got to ask the people that create it. Okay, so the whole thing about dementia, we have to understand that all illnesses, all operating systems are codes, okay? They're operating systems. Now, a lot of people use dementia as a way to disconnect from reality. So what ends up happening is it's kind of an escape mechanism. There's two parts to it. One, on a personal level, saying, okay, I have a lot of issues on the past. I have a lot of different things. I have uncomfortableness about my world. And then it will activate the codes, because those are plugged in, to be able to lose my attachments and definitions of my reality. So basically they represent a non-active state of memory at that point in time, and also it starts to disconnect from other playmates. So that's on a personal level. They choose that. But the reason they're choosing it is because of their own personal thing. But at the same time, a dimension, a person will come into your life, or somebody in your life that is in your family dynamic, with the option to take it on or not, can turn it on for their own personal, but also how to affect the family dynamics that it's involved, and anybody else that's involved in that. So if there's a certain attachment of a representation of this particular individual, then you start losing this individual. Okay? So that individual is no longer the person you knew, because most people put an attachment to a version of that particular person, what they represented, and so forth. So you will notice that you start losing that person. Now, on a personal level, if it gets deep enough, because it says, okay, I'm going to exit from all of this, so from a conscious level, then you will, at times, will have the human entity leaving and the so-called, what do you call it? The multidimensional soul leaving. So then there's just the shell, which is basically the body, which is the expression from that. But it also has a connection to what we can call the matrix, and the matrix will allow them to still represent as being there, and then there will be somewhat of a connection from the collective human entity and a collective of sorts of a multidimensional soul, but it will stay with minimal restrictions so that they play that particular role. Many people, you will notice, when their life is less than favorable in their own viewpoint, and are noticing that they're having a tough time dealing with life, or they feel that they're stuck and they can't shift from it, then they will activate that. And that's an option that was plugged in from that inverted world, to be able to go through the point of using whatever the codes that were installed from a collective perspective to actually disconnect their their functionality and reality connections that they may have. And then, of course, you'll see that that affects the whole family dynamics or anybody that's involved at that point in time. Go ahead.
Do you think, though, as well, it's triggered by pollutants in the food that we eat? Because, you know, our bodies are have to move into an alignment with us. We have to be congruent in everything. And so when we're not, you know, putting the right things in there, or we are being bombarded with pollutants and toxins and stuff, that can also have an effect on how our body functions and our brains.
Well, it does play a role. The thing is, all of that will contribute and will set the stage for dementia to kick in. Look at it this way. How many people on the planet right now are being exposed to the same type of pollutants, are being exposed to many, many codes and so forth from whatever they're ingesting and exposing, but not everybody's going into dementia, all of that. What happens is everybody's being exposed. It's up to the individual. Do I flick it on or do I not flick it on? Is it going to be beneficial for me or not? Yes, I mean, you want to limit as much as possible the ingestion. I see people that are, you know, abuse their body massively and they don't have Alzheimer's or dementia or anything of that nature. They don't have it, but they actually have tremendous amount of code. They usually play a different role because that's the role that they want to play and is also facilitating the family. So as much as that, we can all have it because we're all bombarded with chemicals. Now, of course, if you're not exposing yourself to a lot of the substances that would create that opportunity, it's definitely beneficial because it doesn't only affect the Alzheimer part or the dementia part, but it also affects our functionality of the body. Because right now, if we're listening to our bodies very powerfully, you'll notice that, you know, we are shifting our diets, shifting on what we're focusing on. We're shifting away from a lot of the things that are so-called what you call pollutants, but they're actually ingested codes that we take on. So those are the factors that come in. I mean, if you actually pay attention to most of the people that end up having with it, you know, have been dwelling within themselves for the longest time, that they feel that, you know, they're trapped or whatever it is, and they want to step out. Now they can use, you know, cancer. They can use any type of codes if they want to actually leave, but like I say, any choices of what it plays out, it usually gives them a certain experience while they're playing a particular role for you know, the people involved. Okay?
Next question then. What if your partner who lives with you drinks almost on a daily basis? What can one do?
Join them. Okay, so the thing is, if you have a partner and they drink on a daily basis and so forth, I mean, you have to stay true to yourself, okay? So the choice that they make in most cases is, again, another form of escapism or, you know, an addiction, but led to escapism. And when I say escapism, it's not just escaping, but it creates another version of themselves where they're not judging themselves, or in some way or another they feel that while they're inebriating themselves at that point in time, they don't feel bad about themselves and so forth. So if you're living with someone of that nature, you know, realize that they've made that choice, but it's up to you how to communicate with them and say, you know, basically at that point in time, first of all, you need to be in a state of neutrality. So if they bother you about doing that, you want to clear out all your programs around that. So you want to be in a neutral state. Now, you have to understand that when somebody drinks a lot, will adjust their frequency because the alcohol does lower the frequency. Now, how low it goes depends on the person, because if they're already feeling bad about themselves and they drink, it actually lowers it further. If they're feeling so-so about themselves and they're drinking, it lowers it, but not as much. Now, depending on how low they go, they actually open up the portal or a channel for other entities of a lower vibration to be attracted to that point in time. And then, of course, they can actually change in the sense of how they communicate and so forth. It's not only because of the alcohol, but also because of the entities that actually go into the driver's seat temporarily for that point in time. So when you're in a state of neutrality, then at that point in time, you can choose and say, okay, I love you for whoever you are and whatever you're doing at this point in time. However, when you are drinking, when you're in that state, our vibration is off tremendously, and it's not someone I want to play with moving forward. So unless we can look at what's going on or assist you in any way to see it, not to fix you or anything like that, to make a different choice, then we may go our separate ways, and that is a choice that may happen. Now, what ends up happening is a lot of times when you get into that very neutral state and your vibration starts to increase, the individual that drinks may feel uncomfortable with you and are the one that chooses to leave, or in fact that they no longer need to play the role for you and they only have the role for themselves. That will create a shift. And I've seen where people used to drink a lot because they were playing a role for the partner, but then when the partner got into a higher vibrational state, they didn't have to play that role any longer, so their drinking reduced. It didn't reduce, it didn't go as deep, and they reduced, and eventually that allowed them to go through their own experience, and they shifted themselves and then dropped it completely. In some cases they don't, completely. But that you have to allow it to be, because you're in each other's lives to kind of create a particular environment. So if you're going to share with them, hey, listen, I'm observing when you drink, this is what happens. I love you anyways. I choose to be this, but I notice that version of you is not something that makes me feel comfortable or it aligns with me. At this point in time, we need to work out, how we adjust this and so forth. And if the one person does not decide to create any shift within themselves, then as your vibration go on, you may feel very free to move on, or they may choose to move on. Go ahead.
Next question. Will future med beds or frequency health beds help or remove the effect of current COVID-19 vaccine bad effects?
Okay. So there's two things. The med beds at this point in time that are in the works, and there's three different versions of it that have been kind of designed, let's put it that way. They will play different roles, but at the same time, will it? If you're going in with that intent because you've now have a newer realization that no longer serves to be compounded or affected by the shot, for example, then that the energies that the machine will replicate from that will help to clear it out. If you don't get to the med bed and your vibration increases anyways as you're moving along, and you've made a new choice of a renewal of moving forward, then the energies that are already being bombarded, which are coming onto the planet at this point in time, will negate and dissolve those effects. But the collective has to reach to a certain higher level of frequency. So along the way, if you choose to stick it out and choose to be here, the effects are not. Now, again, that particular shot is another window or door opening for many souls to play out a particular role, to awaken the masses, to accentuate their potentiality, and also for an exit point. But it's up to each individual how far, because you'll notice some will exit, others already have been exiting, others will have really powerful reactions, and others don't have any reactions right now, but are also creating kind of a storm within themselves. But it's up to each individual what they turn on, don't turn on, how they do it, and so forth. Now, if they're playing a particular role for certain individuals to waken them up and they're not so concerned of where it goes, they will play whatever's necessary for each party involved. So it's very flexible. So I said, like the energies coming in, yeah, the med beds can and are have that opportunity, but it's really the intent of the person that's using it. So if you are saying, okay, I don't want any of that to be in there, and the energies haven't collectively risen high enough to neutralize it, then you can use the medbed as a method. Go ahead.
Okay, next question. We're told that when we're living in alignment with our true self means that we will automatically be successful in the 3D energetically, financially, etc. as we navigate life and earth. I want to live the biggest and most expansive life possible. Travel, experiences, generosity. This requires money. What are your thoughts on only focusing on true self energetic alignment of self of love and joy equating to monetary abundance?
Yeah, so the thing is, you don't want to put attention on the money part, because at this point in time that actually not only lowers your frequency, but it actually shifts. So if you're going to focus on your pure essence, your pure love, and create your environment, what you need will be available as you need it. Now, a lot of times the ego can get involved and say, well, I want this, that, and that. I'm not saying you're not going to be able to travel or anything of that nature, or be able to be, supporting others along the way, but it still always stems back to you. Because if you're trying to create or manifest, say money, for example, from an old paradigm, from an old state or a lower state where it's not coming from pure love, then whatever, you may have certain things which we can call success or whatever it is, but it's never going to feel fulfilling, and it's also going to be categorized in the frequency that you will be able to play in and access at this point in time. But if you work on yourself first and foremost and get to that higher pure love, pure state that you are, then you now have the capacities to even create, and you're going to create so-called the money part to support you in the journey that you're going through at this point while it's still active, because the money thing is going to be active for a while. It's going to go through some changes, some this year, some the following years, and so forth, moving along. But at the same time, eventually you'll be all faded out, because it's not something that we're going to support. So the thing is, work on yourself, and if you feel guided to provide a service or doing something of that nature where resources will come about, perfect. Do it, but you're doing it with love. You're doing it because it's an expression you want to provide, rather than saying, well, when I have all of this stuff, that's when I can feel good, or that's my true self. The true self is you already living it. And then when you're living it or feeling it within yourself, then you can use your creative ability and whatever resources, and you're going to be doing certain things that will feel very more aligned for you to do, which will be a stepping stone for resources to come in eventually. There are many things in the works that will open a lot of that up. How quickly it will come about, there's a lot of simulations that have occurred in such a fashion, but it's not here to wait and see and wait for all of this stuff. It's really working on yourself is key and foremost.
Okay, what are your thoughts on physical body clearing, like kinesiology, as needed to fully embody pure love source state? When I say clearing, I mean clearing trapped, locked emotions in the body from trauma.
Yeah, I mean, what happens is when we experience and label something as trauma, as good, bad, right, wrong, or something horrible or anything, a lot of times we end up trapping that memory and the corresponding energy and the corresponding emotions to certain parts of our body. It could be in organs, it can be on the physical limbs or certain parts of the torso or any parts of the body. So if you're doing certain techniques and so forth where you're using a way to release that, one of the ways to release it is when you have the pain, is to really connect with that pain and connect with the feeling of it completely. But then there are facilitators out there and there are services out there where they will help you pinpoint those areas, and maybe certain touches or certain modalities that are done will bring up those locked in memories, locked in energies, and locked in emotional charges. So it gets released from the body, and it can feel that the body feels much more balanced, and the energy flows through your body more. So if you feel called to do some of those services, yes, utilize the services at this point in time. If you can't utilize the services, really spend the time to connect with whatever you're feeling from the body, because at times you're going to feel, certain blocks or energetic clusters within your body. A lot of times it represents as pain. A lot of times it represents as different ways that you can feel in those areas. So you want to connect with that and really allow it to express and see what the message is, and then really thank it, and then send a lot of love. As you focus that pure love to those areas, the locked in energies, emotions, and memories do clear out.
Okay. Next question. If it's your true twin flame that's triggering you, maintaining a pattern of taking something, and if you are guilty of saying no, but to be centered, you need to, how do you deal with this?
Guilty to say no. Go
I'm
ahead.
thinking what the intent is that you're with your twin flame and there's a pattern going on, and in order to break the pattern, you have to say no. To be centered, you need to say no, but you're feeling guilty to say no. But in order to be centered, you need to. How do you deal with this?
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
So yes. So the point here is that no is to you. You say no to yourself. I am not supporting. I'm okay with it, your neutrality and so forth, but I am no longer choosing, first of all, to judge it or see it good, bad, right, wrong. But at that point in time, saying, no, I'm not going to collaborate. I'm not going to support it or anything of that nature. But that's the first part that you make. And you do that in a neutrality point. It's like somebody's playing a role. Do you join in with them or not? Okay? That is your choice. So you say no to yourself. Now, if you feel that you have your partner, and this does not matter if it's your twin soul, if it is your soulmate, if it is your soul family, or anything of that nature, or just a partner. It's all the same. The difference is if it's your twin soul, you have the same signature, you share kind of a deeper connection through the souls and so forth. But the only reason you're going to play particular roles of any of those connections, regardless if it's soulmates, soul families, or twin souls, to facilitate each other. The difference between the twin soul is that there's a more powerful connection and more synchronicities or alignments with the frequencies. But at the same time, it does not mean that you have to play a different role. It's the same for all of them. You're the one that decides, do I cooperate or not? You do not go into the state of saying, well, I have to play this role or not because it's my twin, or it's because it's my soulmate, because it's whatever. You say, no, I'm not going to cooperate. I'm not going to, that's within yourself. Okay? Yeah, I'm not choosing to support that. But at the same time, as you, with anybody else at this point, if you feel guided to share it, say, hey, listen, you're choosing to play this. I can see the results. I can see as an observer what is playing out. However, I'm not choosing to comply or to be part of it or in that same fashion. I'm open to play with you. I'm open to experience, but not when you're playing it this way, because it's not in alignment with me. You're still going to have love, very powerful love, for allowing them to have that. So you hold that energy of yourself, not for them, but for you. And then that is still translated to them, and then they can choose to align with you or not. A lot of times what ends up happening is the twin souls, let's stick with that one temporarily, that they will play very powerful roles for each other to bring up stories, programs, belief system, and it's a little harder, or a lot harder in some cases, for twin souls to go their separate directions, because there is that powerful magnetic pull, and they can take advantage of that pushes it even harder. So if you're experiencing something of that nature, you want to make sure you clear out all your programs, and then you at the same time could share with them your observation without applying an expectation or a condition for them. Say, listen, if you're going to play that role, at these particular times, we're not going to play together. At those particular times, I may not be in your presence. I may choose to go somewhere else, or whatever it is, but we're not going to play there with that. The whole guilt thing, that's ego, that's program. The thing is, you want to understand that you're not there to tell them how to live their life. you are going to share your observation. You're going to share your observation of what you're seeing them, how they change, what they go through, and so forth, and how it feels in alignment or not in alignment with you. And that's what you end up doing. And don't think that because you found your true twin flame is that, or twin soul, whatever it is, that it is a match where it never goes its separate ways or does not play any particular role for each other. Because originally, any souls that come together are to assist each other to advance, including twins. They just take a little more advantage of pushing it even further because of the pull, but and eventually then to collaborate and to work together. But the thing is, each individual has their own operating system that they need to refine and purify. Go ahead.
Okay, next question. I am curious, how are we doing with the process of moving forward in regards to the plan we have made as a collective, transferring into organic 3D, 5D?
Well, we're moving forward, absolutely. There are no more delays. You will notice that we're having a lot of different influxes of energies coming in, a lot of light codes, a lot of different things that are happening back to back to back to back. You will also notice a lot of polarity accentuations or intensification. You will also notice that a lot of things are crumbling. Along a lot of the rigid stuff are becoming very out of balance, or in this case, less, how do they call it, stable, okay? You will also notice the role players that are playing, reflecting the older world, are really acting out in such a way that they're becoming much more present with what's going on, so that more and more people can realize it and go into that empowered state. So we are still moving full force ahead, and but we're on a collective scale, we are monitoring what the next wave, next plug-in, next opportunity to keep everybody on path. We're not doing what we did before, where we said, okay, we're going to extend it or anything of that nature. There is no extension that I know of, or that have even been entertained at this point in time. It's been what, a year and a half ago they said, make it or not make it. What was it? Ready or not, that was the word. Ready or not, we're still moving forward regardless. And you will notice certain individuals will leave, others will come in. There's going to be a lot of adjustments that will go accordingly. So we're still on track.
Okay. What's the reason of the fear if we wake up?
What's the reason for the fear?
Of the fear if we wake up. So I'm just wondering if they mean if we wake up, will we still have fear?
No, absolutely not. You will not have fear. Fear is an illusionary projection from that inverted world, inverted 3D, 2D. The fear of loss, the fear of this, these were all implanted, okay? Because when you're awake, you see that you're fully in charge. When you are, and again, we can't reach full awakening. We are going to go to different levels of awakening. And what is awakening? Or self-realization that we are source, that we are the creator, we are our own creation, we're the observer of creation. So more you go into that, fear does not exist. Okay? Because in that point in time, the only reason fear can actually exist is that there's it projects a separation, meaning that I have no control, I have no capacities to shape my reality. If I don't do this, something bad's going to happen. Okay? In the awakened state, you see that that's not real. We always have full control of what we introduce and don't introduce in our reality, what we choose to play with, how deep we go through it, and so forth. So fear, if it's still playing out, it's still part of that polarity and the unconsciousness that's playing out right now that is still pushing forward. And we're, just bringing it to the surface that we can purge it. But in a self-aware state, there is no fear. Fear did not exist in our original design. For the first 5,000 years, there was no fear. It was after the inverted world was put into, and the separation. Because the separation also dictated we have to be afraid of each other. But look at how far it went. We need to be afraid of our bodies. We need to be afraid of what we are exposed to. We need to be afraid of every facet of ourselves. Now, of course, we're coming to that realization more and more. But that fear does not exist in that higher level of awakening. So if we're going even in an organic state, organic 3D, fear does not exist in that true capacity. Organic 5D, of course, doesn't even entertain the idea. In the organic 3D, you can play with it, but it does not have the same power that you have in the inverted world that we've been playing.
Okay. Next question. So, is the Earth flat or round? There's so much conversation about it. Something I would not have imagined would be conversation at all. And I know you did an Advancing Consciousness podcast on this, episode 27, if anyone wants to check it out. But you said still ask the question because you wanted to add something to it?
Yeah, but that was the other day. That was like a week or so ago. Okay, so really, just really quickly for that. So there's the belief that the Earth is flat, we got a big bubble, blah, 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 and it's floating around in space. Okay? The other part is that it's kind of oval, it's not a perfect round, and then the other option is round. So we got round, oval, I think that's how it's spelled, right? And flat. All right. So I can say it's one or the other. Okay? Let's say Earth. And we're going to piss off some people. And then there's another one called the field. Did I spell that right? I think it's the other way around.
R-E-I, I think.
Field?
E-I.
E-I, that's what I thought, yeah. When I'm in the... Yeah, okay, great. All right, so what is it? Is it flat? Is it round? Is it oval? Well, I have news for you. It's none. It is none. We're just a field. However, within the field, we created a matrix. And the matrix created the opportunity for us to see it in whatever fashion we choose. We can see it and experience it as flat. We can experience it to see it as oval. And we can experience it and see it as round. It's up to us. What dictates it? Frequency. So it depends on what frequency it's in. It's like a TV, okay? So you know what the TV is? Television. Television has multiple channels. So there's channel 1, channel 2. Well, of course, there's hundreds now these days, if not thousands. But wherever you are. Oops, what did I just do here?
I don't know.
2 and 3. Okay. If you are on channel 1, for example, for the TV, okay, has all 3 channels. Let's say it only has 3 channels this time. It has all 3 channels. Each channel is playing out a world or is playing out a show of some sort. Until we turn on the TV and switch to channel 1, we'll see the world a certain way or see the show that's being played on channel 1. We switch it to channel 2, that world still, you're seeing another example of the world or another example of another show. If you switch it to channel 3, you're seeing the other channel. All of those 3 channels are all transmitting. It depends on what we're looking at, which channel we select because we want to look at it. So if we're one channel, we're going to see it as this. Another channel, we're going to see it as oval. And the other channel, we're going to see it as round. Now, on a collective scale, from a galactic point, it said, okay, we're going to focus on what this looks like. Okay? But this exists. Not that it doesn't. So it depends. It's been proven and shown that whatever channel you're on, what frequency range that you are on, you will experience it one way or another. And that's the beauty. But really, what are we in? We are in the field. We're in the field. We are in source field. We're our spirit source field that creates what looks like solid, or what looks like. If you look at it, there are no universes, there are no galaxies, there are no planets, nothing is there. But those are layers of creations to create what looks like form so that we can experience ourselves as form. That's the difference. So, is any of these wrong? No. Have we been conditioned to see the world as round? Yeah, we've been programmed to believe that. So a lot of more energy is put into that, so it looks this way. Others, researchers have said, well, it's not quite round, it's kind of oval because of the spin and the fact that it's not perfectly round. And then, of course, we've put in the focus that it is flat also, but we can see it. You can be in any of those frequencies and you will not only experience it, but even if you did tests and you had a strong belief of it, it will actually play out to exactly what you expect. Go ahead. You were going to say something? No? Oh, something else. Okay.
Oh, by the way, someone did say field is spelled with I-E, not E-I, so we both were wrong.
Well, I had it right the first time.
You did have it right, honey.
There you go.
And you were questioning it.
Well, I was questioning it because sometimes from this, yeah, it looks weird from here. Yeah. You know, and depends on, because my soul's transmitting, it's all depending on me to sort it out, and of course, whatever. Okay, I won't go into the details, but sometimes writing it up here, I can't actually put it into the same context. Okay, so is it any of those? It's none and it's all, but the thing is, we're just a field and we're experiencing. Is our physicality look the way it is? Well, it looks this way because it's programmed in the field to look this way and to represent this way so that we can play the game within that field. Planet Gaia and so forth is within that field and so forth. You know, so the inner earth, well, you could say, well, it's on the other side of this. You can say, well, it's inside of this. It can be inside of this, or whatever it is. You can call it whatever you want. So when somebody asked me this like 2 or 3 years ago, and maybe even further, I think it goes back because we weren't even living in this house, but somebody had asked at that point, is the earth flat, is it round, or whatever it is? And I said, none. It's none, except because we've made certain agreements of seeing it a certain way, it represents that way. So, yeah, that's the thing. Have we been deceived? No, we're just kind of reflecting a collective belief or whatever it is. But when you actually see it, if you actually see it from a designer perspective, you'll see it's not there. It's just a field of energy. So, okay. I'm going to change pages here so I don't have to wipe it all out. Go ahead.
Okay. So, next question is wholeness androgynous? Either male or female?
No. When you're in whole, it's neither, but it will use a particular physicality of expression. So when you're in your true self, okay, you can express it through male or female or anything in between, but you can express it in male and female. The only difference is in that pure state, you're not confined or bound by the definition stories and so forth of what a female or male represents or anything in between. It does not. So when you're in your pure state, you see the physical form for what it is because that's what you've taken on, and you're not defined by it. It does not define you. Yes, there's different operating systems within the body, so you utilize that. But it's not confined either, because even the operating system is quite expansive, not limited to how we've been experiencing it. So there are planets, there are physical forms where it does not express as male and female. Okay? It does not have the same characteristics that we have in physical form. But on this playground, it felt best to create the two. But when the two were there and the combining creating more, okay, was how it was engineered to be expressed and experienced, because there was a profound opportunity of that expression to do so. But for the first 5,000 years, there were no definition what male or female was applied to it. It was later on. So now you could see, as I was talking about earlier in the episode, about, you know, being genderfied, or what this represents or that, equality, balance, and whatever it is, and the you know, the battle of the sexes, or whatever it is. None of that stuff applies. So when you're in wholeness, you see everything as equal, balance, and whatever else, but we will utilize whatever physicality we are without the same restrictions and limitations as before. But each one has its own unique capacities, and we choose which one we come in, but it doesn't have to have those confines.
Okay, you want another question?
Yes, go. Let's go.
One more?
Since we
Okay.
started late again.
Okay. Okay. I was sitting with the poster that was posted about merging light and dark to achieve 0 point, and a question came up about the merging. Is there a need to merge the dark and connect to the low frequency state of being to integrate it, or is it better to just stay in a high frequency state of being and not engage in the low frequency state and trying to get it to integrate, which may in turn create the dance of polarity? We know the dark is there and we don't fear it. It's just a frequency of being. We may be seeing the poster differently from its intended. Okay, sorry. I just wanted to clarify the intent of having to merge the light and dark and the need to connect to the dark. When I see the two forces, they're always dancing in polarity like checks and balances, but wondering why we need to engage in a side that is about being dark as it feels it is about undoing.
Okay, that's an excellent question. The intent is to be holistic. That means that you're going to be the highest expression and frequency, the fullest spectrum as possible. When you are doing that, the polarities of negative, light and dark become one. You don't have to go play on either one. As long as you have to play in either one, you're basically still polarizing. If you're becoming a light worker, you're still polarized. If you're a dark worker, you're polarized. When you are in 0 point, when you're basically, so the merging happens automatically, because it's no, the thing is, it is already one. It's just that it's been kind of separated and maintained its separateness by this illusionary projections that we have had, and you know, we choose to go there. So it's not about, you know, the thing is, if you're going to say the light workers are bad, I mean the dark workers are bad, and that we're going to judge the dark or judge that lower frequency, then we're still giving the separation. We're still maintaining the polarization. You see the dark as for what it is. It just is that lower frequency, and you have no judgment about it, and the embracing is allow it to be. Allow it to be for whoever wants to play there, and the same with the light, what people call the light. So in fact, you're coming into as a holistic, and then all of that dissolves, because in you there is no light or dark, there's only the whole. There is the full spectrum, the 0 point, the oneness, the unification part of it. So that's the thing. It's and when I say embracing the dark, it's basically accepting its presence. You don't have to internalize it, you don't have to utilize it, because you're not going from one to the other. You keep it open to welcome it, but you're holding a high vibration so that both parts, the light and the dark, actually, or any form of polarity, actually loses its fragmentation and becomes part of that whole, and it no longer holds its old integrity of that the dark or the light. Does that make any sense to you as a listener? You're just saying, sure.
Well, I'm reading some
Okay.
ahead, that's why I'm
All right.
not totally tuned in.
Okay,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Do you want another question?
Sure.
One more? last one? Or
Well, you're the one that calls it.
No, you're the one speaking.
Go ahead.
Okay, so just a second, putting in the time. Okay. You've probably spoken to this at one point, but what's up for me as the ego dissolves are feelings of hopelessness, purposefulness, that's a mouthful, meaninglessness, even boredom. I'm sure all it requires is to be spacious enough to accept that flow. Yet, if there's anything further you could say about that topic, it would be appreciated.
Yeah, everything that you just brought up, the hopelessness and all of that stuff, that's the ego's intent to keep you not to go down that path, okay? Because in essence, it's like, okay, I'm letting go of the ego, now I feel hopeless, I feel this or that. It's just a play. So the point is, welcome it. Of course, write it down. I feel hopeless. Well, then find out what the story behind that, or what the story the ego is projecting of that. So you want to address it, because the only reason you would feel that, those are the remnants and the rest of the residue that's left of that world, and also the ego ramping up and saying, hey, I don't want to be getting rid of. So, hey, if we go down that path where, you let me go, then there's going to be boredom, there's going to be frustration, there's going to be whatever, all of those things that you mentioned, that's going to play out. But that's still ego in action. So you're going to go through the process of integrating yourself in that expanded field, that playfulness, that light, and saying, okay, great, this is what I choose. I connect with that energy. You play with that energy, and that stuff will not have the same grip. But please, if it comes up very strong, and look at it and say, okay, even if the boredom comes up, write it down. I'm bored. What does that look like? Why am I feeling bored? I don't feel I feel limited, or I don't feel the excitement and so forth. Why am I not feeling excitement? Why am I not looking at some other opportunities? Why am I not connecting with myself, or whatever it is? As you're asking the why, write out the answers, and then look at with those answers, also look at the reason why those answers are even there. And you want to get to the point of that. Because when you are ego-less, you're not going to be playing in the old world. You're not going to be, or at least it's not being projected. You're not going to also be in that polarity world that you're aware of and so forth. And the game actually opens up, because now you have a lot more freedom to expand yourself and go in whatever directions you choose. It is part of the transition, because the ego is going to try to grab as much as possible. Your patterns may turn around and say, oh, wait, when we didn't have all that entertainment and the polarity world, it was boring, or the fact of, I don't have as much option or choice or anything of that nature. Remember, you're going from slavery to freedom, and freedom is completely wide open, so you're really designing. So there's going to be periods of time that it's going to show you that you can't redesign, or that there are limits in the designing, and that's only temporary.
Okay.
All right.
This is the last question.
Okay,
my
last
dear.
question.
Okay. Why is it that the moon does not make me feel at peace? If I see the moonlight, or it comes when I'm sleeping, I just cannot sleep. It is many years, even as a young girl, I just cannot figure it out. Every time you mention about it, makes me more curious. I'm not at all afraid. Just please let me know.
Okay. So originally the moon, what it would do, depending on the vibration and what your sensitivity was to the different things that were playing out, the moon itself actually was used as a satellite. So it was beaming down the inverted matrix, inverted 3D, 2D, 1D. It did create a polarized energetic field and so forth that actually supported a disconnect. Now, many people still have a memory of that and still are playing out. So what you want to do is write down, okay, whenever I see the moon or anything of that nature, I feel the way I feel. And you write down what you're feeling. And then you ask yourself, why am I feeling it? Is it genuinely the light that's coming off? Because first of all, there's several things that are happening to the moon at this point in time. So, oops. So you got the moon. Oops. So the moon has what people call the dark side. And then it's the side that we see. So the way the moon works at this point in time, this part of it that's illuminated, that actually reflects the sun, also had the transmission part. This was the satellite part of it that was beaming down to Earth. Okay? Earth. The satellite part has been turned off. Okay? So it's no longer transmitting the inverted matrix, inverted 3D, 2D, 1D, and so forth, and all the associated energies and codes and so forth. So a lot of times with people, whenever went to the moon, when they were outside, when the moon was out, they would feel certain things happening in their lives. They may feel emotionally uncomfortable, would stimulate for them, and so forth in a certain way. So whenever you had a full moon, a lot of people would have a lot of powerful emotional charges. A lot of their older programs, or even programs that emanated a lower vibration, and because of the inverted transmission of it, that people would be able to play a more intensified negative role when the moon was actually full, because you got a stronger blast, a direct blast. Okay? Then as the moon, of course, you saw less of it because of how it moved and so forth. It has less of an impact on you at that point in time. Now, the moon still has a magnetic field, and that's why the tidal waves and all of that stuff still keep going. Now, since that got turned off, the only thing the moon is reflecting is the sun. It's reflecting basically the frequency of the sun. Okay? It is a tuned down because, of course, you're not getting a direct hit, but you're getting a lower hit. Now, what ends up happening, if there's a memory that, hey, the moon made me feel this way whenever it's full, and that's still active, then just the fact that you're seeing the moon will trigger those programs within you and those patterns within you at this point in time. In some cases, the moonlight also, because it's reflecting a certain amount of the sun rays back, it can stimulate a lower simulation of awakening, and sometimes it can be a little difficult to sleep, per se, because it may stimulate, oh, it's still somewhat daylight or something of that nature, especially when there's a full moon. So there's two parts to it. An older program, an older pattern, and so forth, that it's being stimulated within yourself because you see it and because there was a correlation or a pattern that was established. And the other part is because of the amount of energies that it's reflecting. Now, I know some people have said, okay, here's our sun. Of course, I'm not using correct size-wise. The sun, of course, is a lot bigger, and so forth. And so is the Earth, is bigger. Okay, well, bigger than the moon. So the way it was designed is because it's being used as a satellite, and it set up that part, it reflected that. Now, there's a third component. The third component is the moon still has a lot of beings that live on there that have chosen to stay in lower frequency. So the moon, in a way, also, because half of the moon is occupied by lower frequencies, which people call operating system Lucifer, that this still somehow relates to Earth to a certain degree. Okay? So even though the sun is shining on that, this part is still emanating. Is it affecting us to the same degree? No, but it is still reminding us of that operating system because the energies, the frequencies that the moon reflects, because it still reflects somewhat the sun, but it also, on the back end of it, that Luciferian operating system, with the Luciferian operating system was part of this inverted matrix, but also the, what's the word? I can't think of it. Anyways, the modified human form. Now, So the question comes in to a lot of people, and I know that's not part of the question, but as the moon is moving around, this dark side is going to be exposed to the sun, because what's happening is the frequency of the planet has been increasing, and a lot of the ones that were from that side that were playing here under the layer of Earth, what we call the undergrounds, have left. And the reason they have left is because the frequencies of the collective is changing, the frequency of the planet is changing, the accentuation of the inner Earth frequency, so they've left, and a lot of them are residing on this side. But what happens if it's moving around? Because of course the sun's frequency has increased, and this is why there's a lot of this chemtrailing and stuff like that to reduce the sun frequency so that we don't get activated as much. But the moon itself, it does rotate, and it's going to be exposed to the sun. So wouldn't that obliterate, the lower frequency because of the higher frequencies coming in? Well, the darker side of the moon has actually an atmosphere at this point in time that is kind of a metallic reflective state. So in fact, the dark side of the moon is never really getting a direct hit from the sun. It's like a super cloudy day before a storm when it starts to get dark. That's kind of what they experience there to an even darker degree. So a lot of the sun that hits here is reflected back because of this atmosphere. And that was purposely put there by the inhabitants so that they would not be exposed to the higher frequencies. This side, no. This side is affected by it, but at the same time, it has a reflective part. This is why it reflects the light of the sun much more powerfully, so that even though it's infusing the moon at this point in time to some degree, that it's affecting it because of its the sun shining on it, a lot of it is reflected, but it is still impacting. At some point, all of this will no longer be able to be sustained, so this part will eliminate. And the plan is that the moon will be taken out of our orbit at some point or another. The moon itself doesn't have a regular orbit like all the other planets. It doesn't rotate and so forth because it is kind of been hollowed out and used as a ship of sorts for that particular satellite type of application that was applied. There's way more to explain, but I'm not going to go into it, and I think I've more than covered the question of it. So in essence, please write down what comes up for you when you feel it. A lot of it is memory. But one last component to it. If you are super, super, super sensitive, okay, and that means that you can feel all types of energies, you will feel when you're exposed to the moon the energies that are reflected from here, from what you call the dark side, the Luciferian side, and so forth. So there's also that equation. If you're super sensitive, you're going to feel it. If you have memories, you're going to experience it. And the third part, or one of the second parts to the three parts, is that it can stimulate feeling more awake at that point in time because of it. Now, sometimes what happens is when we're sensing this energy, it also creates an alertness state where you need to be aware of what's coming in and so forth. So it's a lot to it, but the thing is, if it doesn't feel comfortable, don't expose yourself to it, and it's one of those three. But before that, look at it. You want to look at what story, program, or belief system, or what pattern is still enabled. You want to clear all of that stuff up, and so forth. And the other thing is, even if you're sensitive and you're sensing the lower frequencies, when your frequency starts to increase, that lower frequency will not even be in your range to be sensed. And that's all I can say about all of that. Okay.
So just to let people know, if you've had a question on the chat, I did put it on my list of questions. So I can't say when we'll get to it for sure, but eventually we will get to them.
Yes. We are intending to do a few more episodes to deal with the questions and answers. Maybe the next one or the ones after that will not have a topic beforehand. So then we'll spend more time on doing the questions. This time we had a topic and it needed to come in even though I intended to do just the questions, but of course I have to flow with whatever people need on a collective scale, and that is usually my soul decides, or not decides, but basically says, okay, this is required, and usually because it's connected to the collective and saying, okay, where can we assist at this point in time? So anyways, if all of this resonates, please share it. If it resonates and you feel like supporting, we welcome contributions. The links are in the description. At the same time, if you feel like exploring some more of the content, there is a link for you to access some of the workshops that are, video and audio recordings of them. And there's also to go into the mailing list at this point in time, the community or community mailing list, where you'll be notified just in case we can't reach you in one way or another. We do send out, we don't bombard you with emails. We don't do that at all. And if you haven't subscribed or connected or followed or commented, just feel free to do so. We thank you again. Go out and play. Have a blast. Until next time, keep being the awesome you that you are and the true you that is emerging from you.